business, we often talk about power in terms of companies. The largest corporations, the richest founders, the most dominant industries. We assume global commerce is controlled by boardrooms in New York, tech campuses in Silicon Valley, or manufacturing giants in China. But what if the most powerful force in the global economy isn't a company at all? What if it's a 120-mile stretch of water cutting through the desert? Every year, more than $1 trillion worth of goods flows through a narrow corridor in Egypt known as the Suez Canal. Oil from the Middle East, electronics from Asia, cars from Europe, food supplies traveling between continents. At its narrowest point, the canal is just a few hundred meters wide, and yet it connects two of the most important oceans on Earth, the Mediterranean Sea and the Red Sea. Without it, ships traveling between Europe and Asia must sail around the entire continent of Africa. That adds nearly 7,000 miles to a single voyage. Weeks of extra travel, millions of dollars in fuel, and global supply chains thrown into chaos. In 2021, the world was reminded of just how fragile this system really is. A single cargo ship, the Ever Given, ran aground inside the canal. For 6 days, it blocked the entire passage, and suddenly, the world discovered something surprising. A single shipping accident had the power to disrupt global trade. Factories slowed. Oil prices fluctuated. Retail inventories shrank, all because of one ship, stuck sideways. But the real story of the Suez Canal is far bigger than one accident. This is the story of how a single trade route became one of the most powerful economic choke points on Earth. It's a story of empire, engineering, ambition, political conflict, and strategic control over the arteries of global commerce. And the deeper you look into the history of the Suez Canal, the more you begin to realize something unsettling. In a world dominated by billion-dollar corporations and trillion-dollar economies, global trade still depends on one narrow passage through the desert. To understand why the Suez Canal matters so much today, we need to go back centuries. Long before airplanes and container ships, long before the global supply chains that power modern retail, there was a simple economic reality. Trade follows the shortest route. For thousands of years, merchants moving goods between Europe and Asia faced a geographic obstacle: the massive landmass of Africa. Ships sailing from India or China to Europe had only two options. They could travel over land using complex caravan networks, or sail all the way around the southern tip of Africa, past the Cape of Good Hope. This route worked, but it was long, dangerous, expensive. During the age of exploration, European powers like Portugal, Spain, and later Britain built global empires around these trade routes, controlled the sea lanes, and you controlled the economy. But the idea of connecting the Mediterranean to the Red Sea is much older than modern shipping. Ancient Egyptian rulers had already experimented with canals linking the Nile River to the Red Sea. Even Napoleon Bonaparte studied the possibility of building a canal across Egypt. During his campaign there, in 1798, but the technology and political stability needed for such a project simply didn't exist. That would change in the 19th century. The Industrial Revolution was transforming global trade. Steamships replaced sailing vessels. Factories produced goods at an unprecedented scale. And suddenly, the economic value of a shortcut between Europe and Asia became enormous. One man saw this opportunity clearly: a French diplomat named Ferdinand de Lesseps. De Lesseps believed the canal could be built not just as an engineering project, but as a commercial enterprise. Investors would fund construction, shipping companies would pay tolls, and whoever controlled the canal would hold the keys to global trade. In 1859, construction began. It would become one of the most ambitious infrastructure projects in human history. But the project would also reveal something deeper about global commerce. Trade routes are not just geography. They are power. Building the Suez Canal was a logistical nightmare. The project required digging a massive trench across the Egyptian desert, nearly 120 miles long, without modern machinery. At first, the canal was excavated largely by hand. Tens of thousands of Egyptian laborers were forced into the project through a system of compulsory labor. Over time, steam-powered dredging machines accelerated the work. The effort took 10 years, Finally, in 1869, the Suez Canal officially opened. The event was celebrated with enormous fanfare. European royalty attended the opening ceremony. But behind the celebration, the economics of the canal were already becoming clear. Ships traveling from London to Mumbai could save nearly 2 weeks of travel time. And suddenly, the Suez Canal became one of the most valuable pieces of infrastructure on Earth. As shipping traffic increased, one country quickly recognized the canal's strategic importance: Britain. During the late 19th century, the United Kingdom controlled a vast global empire, and the fastest route to India, its most valuable colony, ran directly through the Suez Canal. When Egypt faced financial troubles in 1875, the British government moved quickly. Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli purchased a massive share of the canal company. Soon after, British military forces occupied Egypt. The canal effectively became a British strategic asset. It was no longer just a trade route. It was an imperial lifeline. During both World War I and World War II, protecting the canal became a top military priority. But empires do not last forever. By the 1950s, colonial empires were collapsing. In Egypt, a new leader rose to power: Gamal Abdel Nasser. Nasser believed Egypt should control its own economic assets, including the Suez Canal. In 1956, he announced a stunning decision: Egypt would nationalize the canal. The move shocked the world. Britain and France reacted aggressively. Together with Israel, they launched a military operation to seize control of the canal. The conflict became known as the Suez Crisis. But the invasion quickly backfired. Both the United States and the Soviet Union pressured the invading forces to withdraw. The operation collapsed, and for the first time in its history, the Suez Canal was firmly under Egyptian control. The crisis marked a turning point in global politics. Over the following decades, the Suez Canal became even more important. The rise of container shipping transformed global logistics. Factories moved to Asia. Consumer markets expanded in Europe and North America, and enormous container ships began carrying goods across the oceans. Today, roughly 12% of global trade passes through the Suez Canal. Oil shipments, manufactured goods, automobiles, electronics, clothing, food. The canal handles more than 20,000 ships every year. But with this scale came new vulnerabilities. The canal is narrow. Traffic moves in controlled convoys. If something goes wrong, the entire system stops. On March 23, 2021, a massive container ship named Ever Given entered the Suez Canal during a sandstorm. The vessel was enormous, nearly 1,300 feet long. Strong winds pushed the ship off course. The bow struck the canal bank. The stern swung across the channel. Within minutes, the Ever Given had become stuck sideways, completely blocking the canal. At first, the situation seemed manageable, but the scale of the vessel made the problem far more complicated. Dredging equipment worked around the clock. Tugboats attempted to pull the ship loose. Meanwhile, a line of cargo ships began forming at both ends of the canal. Within days, more than 400 vessels were waiting. Every hour, the canal remained blocked. The global economy lost millions of dollars. Manufacturers delayed production. Retailers faced inventory shortages. For 6 days, the world watched. Finally, on March 29th, the Ever Given was dislodged. Traffic resumed. But the event exposed something profound. Despite satellites, automation, and trillion-dollar supply chains, the global economy still depends on physical choke points. The story of the Suez Canal reveals a pattern that appears repeatedly in business. Control the infrastructure, and you control the market. This idea appears across industries. Railroads in the 19th century, oil pipelines in the 20th, cloud computing platforms today. Companies like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google dominate cloud infrastructure. If those systems fail, entire industries can stall. The same pattern exists in logistics. Companies like Maersk depend on narrow shipping corridors like the Suez Canal. In business strategy, these are known as choke points, small points of control that influence massive flows of value. The Suez Canal is perhaps the clearest physical example of this concept. The story of the Suez Canal is not just about geography. It's about how infrastructure shapes power. 3 lessons stand out. First, trade routes create economic empires. Whoever controls the routes of commerce gains enormous influence. Second, global systems are more fragile than they appear. A single ship blocked the Suez Canal and disrupted the global economy. Complex systems often depend on surprisingly small points of failure. Third, infrastructure is the invisible foundation of business. Most people focus on companies and products, but behind every successful market lies a network of ports, railways, fiber cables, and shipping routes. These systems rarely attract headlines until something goes wrong. Today, the Suez Canal continues to evolve. Expansion projects are underway. Shipping traffic keeps growing, and global trade continues to rely on this narrow passage through the Egyptian desert, which raises an important question. In a world increasingly dependent on global supply chains, what happens if the next disruption lasts longer than 6 days? If you enjoy deep dive business documentaries like this, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Because sometimes the most powerful forces in business aren't companies at all. They are the routes that connect the world.